Forbidden Scripture. Texts that the Vatican banned have uncountable power. Angels, Gnosis, and Real History. The burned library of human consciousness. Why was so much wisdom erased? Have you ever had the nagging feeling that the story we've been told is incomplete? What crucial pieces of the puzzle of human existence have been deliberately removed from the board? When you leaf through traditional religious texts, no matter how profound, do you feel something is missing? A layer of knowledge, a dimension of power, an understanding of our true nature and potential that seems to have been edited. What if this feeling isn't paranoia, but a heightened intuition picking up on the ghostly echoes of a vast library of wisdom that has been systematically suppressed, rejected, labeled as dangerous, or simply erased from our collective memory? We are talking about the so-called apocryphal books, pseudepigraphal books, the Gnostic texts, technical names for an impressive collection of ancient writings that circulated in the same periods and environments as the canonical, biblical texts, but which, due to decisions of councils, figures of power and changes in political and religious tides, were left behind, locked away in vaults, or condemned to the flames. The official narrative tells us that these books were rejected for questions of authenticity, historical inaccuracies, or theological heresies that deviated from the true faith. A neat, tidy, convenient explanation, but is this the whole story? Or is this narrative itself part of a larger agenda to control access to certain types of knowledge? Think about it. We are talking about texts that, according to surviving accounts and fragments, contained explosive information. The Book of Enoch, for example, and we've already delved into some of its secrets here on the Gaia Ascension channel, describes fallen angels interacting with humans, giants being born from this union, and detailed celestial journeys that challenge our understanding of the cosmos. The Gospel of Thomas, another fascinating topic we've explored, presents a Jesus whose teachings seem to focus much more on awakening, the divine spark within each individual, than on salvation through an external institution. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene, which we've also begun to unravel in our videos, suggests a prominent role for the divine feminine and a direct, intuitive path of knowledge that often conflicted with the hierarchical structures that were forming. Were these texts truly heretical, or were they dangerously empowering? Could it be that the real crime of these writings was not theological, but rather that they offered keys to a level of consciousness and personal power that threatened the structures of control that were being established? Consider the possibility that these rejected books are not just historical curiosities or theological deviations. What if they represent lost fragments of advanced spiritual science? What if they contain not only alternative histories, but energetic protocols, technologies of consciousness, maps for activating our multidimensional DNA, and insights into the nature of reality, interaction with other dimensions, and the true history of humanity that were deemed too volatile to be left in ordinary hands? History is written by the victors, and spiritual history is no exception. Those who held the power to define the canon, the official list of inspired books, also had the power to define the boundaries of our perceived reality, to draw the lines of what we were allowed to know and experience. By labeling certain knowledge as forbidden or false, they may have deprived us of essential tools for our own evolution and ascension. Here at Gaia's Ascension channel, we do not accept ready-made narratives. We investigate the margins, we scour the footnotes of history, we seek out the echoes of wisdom that they have tried to silence. Our purpose in this deep dive is not to simply list these rejected books and summarize their contents in an academic way. You can find that elsewhere. What we will do here is something different. We will explore the energy behind these texts. We will investigate the energetic and political reasons for their suppression, and most importantly, we will begin to decipher the codes of consciousness that may be hidden within their pages and fragments. What did these texts really teach about? The nature of angels and demons. Were they representations of energetic forces or interdimensional entities? What was their view of creation, the fall, and the potential for a return to unity? What practices or understandings of energy manipulation, manifestation, and interdimensional communication might they contain? This is not about replacing one Bible with another, or blindly accepting everything written in these ancient texts, many of which have also undergone editing and interpretation over time. This is about reclaiming the right to investigate for ourselves, to use our intuition and discernment to find pearls of wisdom wherever they may be, even and perhaps especially in the places we have been told not to look. This is about recognizing that the truth may be much larger, more complex, and infinitely more interesting than the simplified version that has been handed down to us. We are about to open doors that have been locked for centuries, to examine knowledge that has been considered dangerous, and the first portal we will pass through takes us to a pre-flood world of giants, fallen angels, and cosmic secrets that may redefine everything we think we know about our origins. Prepare to meet the explosive Book of Enoch, not as a myth but as a possible key to understanding an interdimensional intervention that has shaped our past and perhaps our present. Enoch and the Watchers. Cosmic codes, genetic engineering, and forbidden knowledge. We now open one of the most fascinating and controversial portals to humanity's hidden past, the Book of Enoch, rejected by most canonical traditions except the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. This set of ancient texts attributed to Noah's great-grandfather is an information bomb that explodes conventional narratives about our origins and our relationship to the cosmos. Forget the idea of a simple religious book. Enoch reads almost like a cosmic intelligence report, a detailed account of events that occurred before the Great Flood, involving celestial beings, intervention in human genetics, and the transmission of knowledge that was at once advanced and dangerous. Let's analyze this not as literal mythology, but as possible coded records of interdimensional interactions and energetic manipulations that have left a deep mark on our collective consciousness and perhaps even our very DNA. The beating heart of the Book of Enoch, especially in the section known as the Book of the Watchers, describes a group of celestial beings called the Watchers or Grigori who descended to Earth. The official story goes that they came to teach humanity, but were seduced by human women, mated with them, and produced a hybrid offspring known as the Nephilim, powerful giants who, according to the text, were violent and destructive. But let's look beyond the moralistic surface. What if these Watchers were not simply fallen angels out of lust, but rather representatives of one or more interdimensional or extraterrestrial civilizations with their own agenda? What if the seduction was a metaphor for a deliberate program of genetic intervention, a hybridization intended to alter the course of human evolution or create a specific bloodline on Earth? The description of the Nephilim as beings of great stature and power who consumed the Earth's resources and oppressed humanity can be interpreted as the result of genetic engineering gone wrong, or as serving a specific purpose on the part of these Watchers, perhaps the creation of a working or warrior race. Even more intriguing is the list of forbidden knowledge that Enoch claims these Watchers taught to humanity. We are not talking just about moral sins, but about specific technologies and wisdoms, advanced metallurgy, making swords, shields, weapons, cosmetics and personal adornment, associated with manipulation of appearance and perhaps body-altering technologies, enchantments, astrology, reading the heavens, perhaps cosmic navigation or understanding energy cycles, knowledge of plants with healing properties, but also poisonous or psychoactive properties, and even secrets about the weather and celestial signs. From the perspective of information control, why would this knowledge be forbidden? Was it because they gave humanity technological power and an understanding of the universe that certain forces, perhaps other celestial factions or the very power structure that later defined the canon, did not want us to have? Metallurgy enables war and independence. Deep astrology connects the individual with cosmic cycles, reducing dependence on religious intermediaries. Knowledge of plants offers power over health and consciousness. Was the fall of the Watchers not a moral act, but the unauthorized transfer of cosmic technology and knowledge to a humanity perhaps not yet prepared for, or for purposes that served only their agenda? Enoch also describes his own heavenly journeys guided by angels, where he witnesses the wonders of the cosmos, the storehouses of snow, hail, and rain, the movements of the heavenly bodies, and even the dwelling of God and the angels. These descriptions, although poetic, are rich in astronomical and cosmological details that seem to go far beyond the knowledge supposedly available at the time the text was written. Were these journeys literal out-of-body experiences, guided astral projections, or even accounts of abductions or contact with advanced technologies that allowed such journeys. The text describes celestial structures, portals, and different dimensional levels. Was Enoch describing, in symbolic language, the multidimensional structure of the universe and the existence of technologies or psychic abilities that allow navigation between these dimensions? The accuracy of some of his calendars and astronomical descriptions has led some modern researchers to speculate that he had access to much older or more advanced knowledge, perhaps preserved from previous civilizations or transmitted by these celestial beings themselves. The suppression of the Book of Enoch from the mainstream canon raises profound questions. Was it removed because of its fanciful descriptions of angels, giants, and space travel, or because it presented a complex cosmology, spoke of multiple heavens, dimensions, detailed hierarchy, and even rebellion among celestial beings, and, crucially, described direct intervention in human history and genetics by non-earthly beings, a narrative that perhaps undermined the idea of a single linear creation and the exclusive authority of the priestly lineages that came after it. By removing Enoch, they also removed a powerful account of our possible hybrid origins, of ancient technological knowledge, and of the complex interplay between humanity and other cosmic intelligences, both benevolent and malevolent. They left a simpler, more manageable version of our story. But the energy and information contained in Enoch continues to resonate. Its themes echo mythologies from around the world, gods descending from the heavens, semi-divine heroes, knowledge brought down from the stars. What if these are not just myths, but fragmented memories of a real and complex past? What if we began to read Enoch not as fantasy, but as a possible coded technical manual, a key to understanding forces and events that may still be influencing our energy field and our evolutionary journey today? The answers may be closer than we imagine, perhaps even dormant in our own DNA, waiting for the right code to be awakened. And the code may well involve understanding other rejected wisdoms, such as those found in the Gnostic Gospels that speak of the divine within. Does this idea of forbidden knowledge of ancient technologies revealed by celestial beings resonate with you? The Book of Enoch opens a Pandora's box about our origins. I want to hear from you, explorers of the Gaia Ascension channel. Which aspect of Enoch's story, the Watchers, the Nephilim, the celestial journeys, or the forbidden knowledge, most intrigues or resonates with your intuition about Earth's hidden past? Leave your answer here in the comments. Let's discuss these possibilities together, and if you feel that unraveling these ancient mysteries is an essential part of your awakening journey, if you want to continue exploring these forbidden territories of consciousness with us, then come be a part of our expedition. Click subscribe and turn on notifications. There are many other codes waiting to be deciphered, and we want to do it together with you. The Stolen Spark, direct knowledge and the divine within in the Gnostic Gospels. If the Book of Enoch opens a window to possible cosmic interventions and forbidden technologies in our remote past, another set of rejected texts, known as the Gnostic Gospels, offers us a radically different but equally explosive perspective. The key to liberation and power would not come from outside, from celestial beings or external rituals, but from within, from the awakening of a divine spark inherent in each human being. Discovered mostly in the mid-20th century, especially in the library found at Nag Hammadi in Egypt, these texts, such as the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, the Gospel of Truth, and the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, present a vision of early Christianity, or perhaps of a current of wisdom that coexisted with it, that shocked the academic and spiritual world. They speak of Gnosis, a Greek term meaning knowledge, but not an intellectual knowledge or knowledge based on blind faith. Gnosis is direct, experiential, intuitive knowledge of divine truth, an inner awakening that reveals our true identity as spiritual beings, temporarily oblivious to our origin. While the emerging orthodoxy emphasized salvation through faith in Jesus as a divine intermediary and adherence to the sacraments and doctrines of the Church, many Gnostic texts painted a different picture. The Gospel of Thomas, for example, is a collection of sayings attributed to Jesus that often point to the presence of the kingdom of the Father within and around the individual. In one famous passage, Jesus says, "The kingdom is within you and without you." When you know yourselves, then you will be known, and you will know that you are children of the living Father. But if you do not know yourselves, then you will be in poverty, and poverty will be you. The emphasis here is clear. Self-knowledge is the key to recognizing our inherent divinity and directly experiencing the kingdom. It is not something to be awaited after death or granted by an external authority. It is a state of being to be realized here and now through Gnosis. This perspective was revolutionary and profoundly subversive of the hierarchical power structures that were emerging. If each individual possesses an inner divine spark and the ability to access direct knowledge of truth, what need is there for priests, bishops, or rigid dogmas as exclusive intermediaries to God? Gnosis promoted a radical spiritual democracy, where the ultimate authority resided in one's own inner experience. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene, in turn, not only places a woman in a prominent position as a close disciple and holder of secret teachings of Jesus, but also emphasizes the ascent of the soul through inner stages, overcoming obstacles represented by powers or archons, which some Gnostics saw as energetic forces or lower interdimensional beings who try to keep humanity trapped in ignorance and matter. Mary Magdalene is portrayed as one who understood the teachings on a deeper level, based on inner vision, in contrast to the more literal or intellectual understanding of other disciples. This not only challenged the nascent patriarchy, but also reinforced the idea of an inner intuitive path to truth accessible to all, regardless of gender or social status. Many Gnostic systems also presented a complex and often dualistic cosmology. They saw the material world not as the perfect creation of a benevolent God, but as a flawed creation, sometimes even a prison, the work of a lower entity called the Demiurge, or Yaldabaoth, an ignorant or malevolent being who believed himself to be the supreme God, but who in fact had simply shaped matter from higher divine patterns that he did not fully understand. The true source, the ineffable Father or Mother, was beyond this material creation. The divine spark within us was a fragment of this true source, imprisoned in matter by the Demiurge and his archons. Salvation, then, was not about escaping sin against the God who created matter, but about awakening to our true origin, transcending the illusion of matter, and freeing our divine spark from the clutches of the Demiurge through Gnosis. This view put the Gnostics in direct conflict with the theology that sacralized the Creator, God of the Old Testament, whom some Gnostics identified with the Demiurge, and that saw the material world as fundamentally good, albeit fallen. Why was this view so fiercely opposed and labeled heresy? We can speculate on several energetic and controlling reasons. First, as mentioned, the emphasis on inner authority completely undermined the need for an external controlling hierarchy. If the truth is within you, you do not need anyone to tell you what to believe or how to connect with the divine. Second, the idea of an inferior creator Demiurge challenged the narrative of a single, omnipotent, and all-benevolent God that was the basis of Orthodox Judeo-Christian theology, potentially shaking the very foundation of these religions. Third, Gnosis offered a path to direct, personal liberation, independent of collective rituals or institutional mediation. It was a path of radical self-empowerment. Fourth, the Gnostic view of the material world as an illusion or prison could lead to a relativization of the laws and social norms based on that world, something that could be seen as socially destabilizing. By suppressing the Gnostic Gospels, the power structures were not only eliminating false teachings, but perhaps they were attempting to erase the very memory of our inherent divinity, the key to our spiritual sovereignty. They were telling us to look outside for salvation, when Gnosis pointed within. They were teaching us to fear an external God, when Gnosis invited us to acknowledge the God within. They were establishing intermediaries, when Gnosis promised direct access. It was a battle for the soul of Western spirituality, and the Gnostic perspective, with its emphasis on inner awakening and direct knowledge, was the one that lost, or rather, was forced underground, surviving in fragments and whispers through the centuries, waiting to be rediscovered. Today, as we seek our own ascension and awakening, the echoes of Gnosis resonate with particular force. The idea that we carry a divine spark, that self-knowledge is the key, that we can access truth directly through intuition and inner experience, and that there may be forces or energies that try to keep us in ignorance. All of this seems incredibly relevant to our current journey. The Gnostic texts, though complex and sometimes enigmatic, may contain valuable maps for navigating consciousness, keys to unlocking our own inner light and transcending perceived limitations. But how do we reconcile this inner vision with Enoch's narratives of external intervention? Perhaps the full truth involves both perspectives, and perhaps other rejected. Texts will give us further clues to this complex tapestry. Echoes of Atlantis, cosmic calendars and secret lineages in forgotten texts. In addition to the giants of Enoch and the inner spark of Gnosis, the lost library of human consciousness contains many other fascinating volumes. Texts that, while less explosive individually, offer additional pieces to our cosmic puzzle. As we examine some of these other rejected writings, we begin to notice recurring patterns, strange emphasis, and information that simply does not fit into the historical or spiritual narrative we have been given. Do they hold echoes of lost civilizations, knowledge of precise energetic calendars, or secrets about bloodlines and priestly manipulations that have been conveniently forgotten? Let's look at a few examples and see what clues they offer. Consider the Book of Jubilees, sometimes called Little Genesis, written probably in the 2nd century BC. It retells the biblical story from creation to Moses, but with some crucial differences and an obsessive emphasis on a 364-day solar calendar. Why this fixation on a specific calendar? Different from the lunar calendar used by much of later Judaism, Jubilees claims that this calendar was revealed by an angel to Moses and earlier to Enoch and the patriarchs, and that following this precise calendar is essential for the correct observance of divine feasts and laws. Is this calendar simply an internal sectarian dispute, or could it represent older knowledge about cosmic and terrestrial energy cycles? Many ancient traditions, including some linked to Atlantis and other lost civilizations, placed great importance on precise calendars based on solar, lunar, and stellar cycles, believing that they were key to aligning human activities with universal energy flows. Could Jubilees be preserving a fragment of this ancient knowledge of sacred timing and cosmic alignment, knowledge that was marginalized because it gave too much predictive and synchronistic power to those who understood it, outside the control of a centralized priestly caste? Furthermore, Jubilees portrays the patriarchs as near-perfect figures, free from the flaws and moral ambiguities described in canonical Genesis. Is this an attempt to create idealized role models, or a way of rewriting history to glorify certain lineages and perhaps hide darker or more complex aspects of the past? Another intriguing set of texts are the testaments of the 12 patriarchs, which purport to be the last words and advice of Jacob's 12 sons to their descendants. Although probably written much later and edited by Christian hands, they contain a strong emphasis on ethics, repentance for the specific sins of each patriarch, lust, envy, anger, etc., and prophecies about the future, including the coming of a Messiah from the tribes of Levi, priestly, and Judah, royal. What is interesting here is the depth, psychology, and understanding of emotional energies and the spirit's energetic influences that can tempt human beings. Each testament functions almost as a manual on how to deal with a particular negative frequency or cultivate a virtue. Is it simply a moral guide, or does it preserve in a veiled form psychological and energetic techniques for transmuting emotions and mastering one's psyche, knowledge that could have its roots in older mystery schools? The dualistic structure of good and evil spirits competing for the human soul echoes Gnostic themes, but here applied in a more practical and ethical way. Furthermore, the emphasis on the lineages of Levi and Judah may point to power struggles and attempts to legitimize specific factions or messianic expectations within Judaism and early Christianity. There are also texts such as the story of Asenath, a narrative that expands on the story of Joseph in Egypt and his marriage to the daughter of an Egyptian priest. Although often seen as a Hellenistic Jewish romance, some scholars see deeper layers in it, perhaps echoes of initiation rituals, the transformation of a pagan into a devout woman through a mystical experience with an angel, and the idea of a sacred union that transcends cultural and religious boundaries, perhaps linking the Hebrew lineage with Egyptian esoteric knowledge. Could there be codes here about the merging of lineages of knowledge, or about the role of the feminine in the reception of divine wisdom. Other texts, such as the various apocalypses attributed to figures such as Abraham, Baruch, or Ezra, different from the canonical books, detail cosmic visions, journeys to other realms, and revelations about the end of times and the final judgment, often with rich symbolic language that can be interpreted on multiple levels, literal, psychological, or even as descriptions of processes of ascension of consciousness or planetary energetic shifts. What emerges when we look at these and other rejected texts together? We see a tapestry much richer, more complex, and perhaps stranger than the simplified narrative of the canon allows us to see. We find concerns with lineages and genetics, from the Nephilim of Enoch to detailed genealogies and stories of intercultural unions, knowledge of cosmic cycles and sacred time, such as the emphasis on the solar calendar of Jubilees, technologies of consciousness and depth psychology, such as in the testaments of the patriarchs or in the practices implicit in Gnosis, interaction with multiple dimensions and beings, present in Enoch, the apocalypses, and even in Gnostic texts, archons, rewriting of history and glorification of figures, suggesting political and control agendas behind the selection of texts, varying emphasis between external knowledge, intervention, and inner awakening. The pendulum between the perspective of Enoch and that of Gnosis. Could these seemingly disparate themes be parts of a single, vast, hidden story? A story that perhaps involves advanced ancient civilizations, Atlantis, Lemuria, their interactions with non-human intelligences, the transmission and loss of spiritual and energetic technologies, genetic and lineage manipulations, and a long struggle for control of human consciousness and the narrative of our own history. The rejected texts, viewed not in isolation but as pieces of a fragmented mosaic, seem to point in this direction. They challenge us to think outside the box, to question the origins of knowledge and power, and to consider that our reality may be the result of forces and events far more complex than we imagine. The library was not just burned. Perhaps the most important pages were torn out and hidden, and the task of finding and reassembling them may hold the key to our next evolutionary stage. Reassembling the mosaic. Your consciousness is the master key. Our expedition into the forbidden lands of spiritual history arrives at a point of clarity, but not of definitive closed answers. And this is intentional. The goal of unearthing these echoes of the rejected books, from the cosmic watchers of Enoch, through the inner divine spark of Gnosis, to the sacred calendars of Jubilees and the depth psychology of the testaments, is not to replace an ancient dogma with a new, alternative dogma. The goal is to break the mental shackles that have been imposed on us, to reclaim our right to question, investigate, and discern for ourselves, and to recognize that the truth about our origin, our nature, and our potential is likely to be vaster, more multidimensional and more magnificent than any single text, canonical or rejected, can contain. These writings are fragments, pieces of a shattered mosaic, echoes of a wisdom that has been distorted, suppressed, and manipulated by countless agendas over the millennia. True revelation lies not in blindly accepting Enoch or Thomas or Jubilees as the final word. True revelation lies in noticing the pattern of suppression, in questioning why so much knowledge that points to our inherent power, our cosmic connection, our complex history, and our capacity for direct interaction with the divine has been so systematically marginalized. The answer seems clear. Knowledge is power, and awakened consciousness is sovereignty. By limiting our access to these perspectives, the structures of control, whether human or perhaps even non-human, as suggested in some of these texts, have sought to keep humanity in a state of spiritual amnesia, dependent on intermediaries, trapped in narratives of sin and powerlessness, disconnected from our true heritage as multidimensional creator beings. The library was burned not only to erase the past, but to limit our future. But the good news is that real information, the energy of truth, cannot be permanently destroyed. It lives on in fragments, in symbols, in myths, in our intuition, and perhaps, most importantly, encoded in our very DNA, waiting for the right conditions and focused intention to be reactivated. The rejected texts, when read with discernment and energetic sensitivity, can act as vibrational keys, triggers that help us remember what we already know at a deep soul level. They invite us to look beyond the veil of consensus reality, to consider mind-expanding possibilities, extraterrestrial, interdimensional interventions, bloodlines with special abilities, forgotten psychic and energetic technologies, the existence of forces that actively seek to prevent our awakening, the presence of an indestructible divine spark within us capable of transcending all of this. The task now is not to get lost in complex theories or endless debates about which text is truer. The task is to use these fragments as tools for our own gnosis, our own inner awakening. Ask yourself, what in Enoch resonates with my cellular memories or strange dreams? What in the teachings of Thomas or Mary Magdalene ignites my own inner light? What patterns in ancient calendars or the psychologies of the Testaments help me navigate my own energy more consciously? The ultimate answer lies not in the ancient papyri, but in your own awakened consciousness. You are the master key. Your intuition, your discernment, your ability to sense the energy and truth behind the words. These are the most important tools. You have used the ancient texts as catalysts, as partial maps, but trust your inner compass as the ultimate guide. Here on the Gaia Ascension channel, we will continue this fascinating exploration, delving into other texts, connecting the dots, challenging the narratives, and most importantly, seeking to provide tools and perspectives that empower you on your personal ascension journey. We don't have all the answers, but we are committed to asking the hard questions and creating a space where free inquiry and awakening consciousness are celebrated. We want you to leave this video not only with information about ancient books, but with a renewed sense of the immense mystery and potential that resides within you and within the collective story of humanity. The truth is out there, yes, but it is also, and perhaps most importantly, within. And now, the journey continues, with you. What has this exploration of the forbidden codes awakened in your consciousness? Which piece of the mosaic most intrigued you or seemed to fit with something you already felt? We want to hear from you. Use the comments section below to share your thoughts, your own discoveries about ancient texts, or simply the feeling this video left you with. Each sharing enriches our collective investigation and strengthens our field. 12 Consciousness. Let's learn from each other and reassemble this mosaic together. If you feel the call to continue unraveling these mysteries, to activate your own potential, and to be part of a community that seeks the truth beyond the veils, then this is the place for you. Subscribe to the Gaia Ascension channel if you haven't already. Click the bell to be the first to know when we launch our next explorations. More than subscribers, we are looking for co-creators, awakened souls ready to claim their cosmic heritage. Join us. Thank you for your open mind, your courage to question, and your luminous presence. Remember, the story we have been told may be incomplete, but the story we will create from now on, with awakened consciousness and recovered power, depends only on us. Until the next discovery.